Right now, on the tip of every one of your fingers, there's a pattern that has never existed before and will never exist again. Not on your parents, not on your siblings, not even on your identical twin. In fact, out of every person who has ever lived, billions upon billions of us, no two fingerprints have ever matched. Not once. So today, we're going to find out why. Fingerprints have been used to identify people for well over a century. Ancient civilizations, including Babylon and China, used thumbprints on clay tablets and documents centuries before anyone understood the science behind them. Today, governments, law enforcement, and even the phone in your pocket all rely on one basic assumption: that no two fingerprints are ever exactly alike. But that raises an obvious question. How can something so small, on such a common part of the body, be so impossible to duplicate? To understand that, we have to go back to before you were even born. Fingerprints begin forming in the womb, starting around the 10th week of pregnancy, as a layer of skin called the basal layer grows faster than the layers around it. That uneven growth causes the skin to buckle and fold, much like fabric bunching up when it's pushed from both ends. By around the 17th week, those folds have become permanent ridges, and the pattern is essentially locked in for life. Genetics does play a role, but a limited one. Your DNA influences the general category your print falls into: a loop, a whorl, or an arch. These are the three basic fingerprint shapes found in every human population on Earth. But genetics only sketches the outline. It doesn't determine the exact position of every ridge, every branch point, or every tiny break in the pattern. That level of detail comes from somewhere else entirely. The fine detail comes from the womb itself. As those ridges are forming, the fetus is moving, pressing against the amniotic sac, shifting position, and being surrounded by fluid that never flows in the same way twice. The precise pressure, tension, and growth rate at each point on the fingertip is essentially random. This is why identical twins, who share virtually identical DNA, still end up with completely different fingerprints. Genetics builds the blueprint. The womb writes in all the fine print, and that environment is never the same for any two people, not even twins developing side by side, sharing the same space at the same time. So just how unlikely is a match? Forensic scientists estimate the odds of two people sharing an identical fingerprint at less than 1 in 64 billion. To put that in perspective, that's roughly 8 times the entire population of Earth. And that's just for one finger. Every single one of your 10 fingers has its own unique, independently formed pattern, making the odds of a full match essentially 0. Interestingly, humans aren't the only species with this kind of ridge pattern. Koalas, like all animals, have fingerprints so similar to human ones that under a microscope, forensic experts have occasionally struggled to tell them apart. Even so, the same rule applies. No two koalas share an identical print either. It appears that whenever ridged skin develops through this kind of growth process, uniqueness is simply built into the system. This uniqueness is exactly why fingerprints remain one of the most trusted identification tools in the world. Forensic investigators don't just look at the overall pattern, they examine minutia points, the specific spots where ridges split, end, or merge. A typical fingerprint contains anywhere from 75 to over 100 of these minutia points, and most identification systems require just 12 to 15 matching points to confirm identity beyond reasonable doubt. It's the same underlying principle your phone uses every time you unlock it with a touch, scanning a pattern so specific that, statistically, no other person on the planet could reproduce it. As biometric technology advances, fingerprint scanning has become faster, more secure, and more precise than ever, used in everything from airport security to hospital record systems to unlocking your front door. And unlike a password, a fingerprint can't be guessed, forgotten, or handed to someone else. It's quite literally written into you before you were even born. So the next time you leave a fingerprint on a glass, remember you're leaving behind something far more personal than your name. You're leaving behind a pattern shaped by genetics, biology, and a few random moments inside the womb that could never happen the same way twice. not even for your own twin. If that just changed the way you look at your own hands, hit subscribe, because we break down something like this every single week.